there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So it's a raw Sunday still. You're getting me in my most natural state because I don't do makeup on the weekends unless I'm going out, and it has to be somewhere besides the grocery store. So anyway, besides the update on how I look, you can see how that's going. I wanted to bring something forward that I think is real relevant all the time. However, it happens to be very relevant today because it keeps coming up. That right now there's a lot of projections out there, you know, a lot of hurt and a lot of pain that's being shoved off in a bunch of different directions because folks just don't know what to do with their pain. They don't know what to do with the fear. They don't know what to do with the anxiety, the extreme trauma, the anger, the resentment. They're just bags of meat that are certainly very tumultuous, and we all are. I'm not saying that I'm without having emotion. I'm just saying there's a lot of folks that are trying to push that stuff off in another direction because I don't know what to do with that bag of monkeys. You know, you do something with it, is really what that is. And despite the fact that it's a huge cry for help, it's one that I don't answer because that's a chaos call in the middle of the night, a 911 to, oh my God, you know. And energetically, when people are throwing themselves out there, just energetically with open borders, giving and receiving, that's a whole level of combat that is just unnecessary. And when people, when people are doing it in physicality, beautiful soul, thank you very much. When people are doing it in physicality, it gets too many feelings hurt. Too many people take things very personally, you know, and we're really just spitting out our trauma parts or doing battle with one another, 144. And really, it would be better if we just went inside and deal with, you know, why I want to punch you in the face or cry or, you know, melt down to begin with. However, that's, you know, kind of a hard conversation. And so as people are busy projecting, part of what can be projected is that I hear it a lot that I don't love that person anymore, they don't love me, etc. And I find that curious because anybody that I've ever said goodbye to that I felt intense attachment and deep, you know, love for, just because I say goodbye doesn't mean that I don't love them anymore. It means that the raw honesty of it is that just because I love something, you know, I love sweet food too, and when I ate a lot of it, I weighed 300 pounds, you know, so deeply loving something and being attached to it in the wrong way or in an unhealthy way, you know, the best way that I can truly love is from a distance quite often, because if the relationship means that we love each other and we have to be together in this knot of codependency and trauma bonding, that's not really the most loving frequency that I can be in. And so when I hear people say that, you know, I just fell out of love with her, like, it no longer served you in some way, or it no longer served her in some way, and then we use the words to say that, you know, I don't love that person anymore. And as I said, I'm not real fond of that thinking, because if we're loving beings, especially if we're on our journey and we talked about being all love and light and stuff, I don't just shut that off. What that means is that it's like saying that the ocean stopped being the ocean because I went from being closer to the shore over to, you know, closer to the middle of the ocean. You know, I'm still in the ocean. So it isn't a matter that I don't love people anymore. It's a matter that I no longer allow the boundaries of our relationship to be so porous that I'm no longer defined. That's what's really true. And sometimes the best way to love someone is to really say that out loud. And if they're still not getting it, you know, say it even more loudly by not being there to argue at all, because silence is deafening and can oftentimes jar people into another space of understanding where they may have, you know, crossed a boundary or something. Because when we get into these battle points with our mouths, people take things very personally. You know, it's easy to, because, you know, somebody's cussing at me and saying, you're a jerk, I hate you, blah, blah, blah. If I'm real super triggered by that, you know, of course I'm going to take that personally. However, at this point in my life, after working on myself for a really long time and moving out of that, you know, personalization of everyone else's stuff towards me and me doing the same, just staying in those battle points unnecessarily, it has brought me to the point of understanding that if somebody is abusive, they're intrusive, they're casting off, they're deflecting, they're projecting, they're doing all of these, things, these trauma responses and reactions and stuff, when they're engaging in toxic behavior, this isn't about love. The most loving thing that I can do is say, I'm not going to be really honest and true and loving with you if I don't tell you that this is absolutely unacceptable behavior. That by staying here and enabling this behavior, I'm not demonstrating my love for you. I'm demonstrating my inability to be honest with you. And I'm also demonstrating my inability to love me. And if I don't love me, I won't love you. So this isn't really what this is. I'm not sure who's all of a sudden... My dog, he doesn't touch that bone all day long. And right now, he got busy chewing on his bone. Whatever makes him happy, man. I like to see him get his groove on. Sorry, it's just so funny. That the true demonstration of love, pure unconditional love, is to let people be their own thing. It's just that in me allowing people to be their own thing, if I had to step away from that because it was going to intrude on me and hurt me or cause me pain or, take something from me or inhibit me from being me, then that was not love, that was negated. It was love that I was actually stated with, I love myself enough to know that if I stay here and play with you like this, I'm losing the opportunity to be as loving as I can. And I'm definitely no longer in the ocean. I just flopped up onto the beach to dry out and be super butthurt and angry about this. And I'm conditioning you continually to believe that this relationship that we're doing like this, that now that I know that's what I'm doing, I'm conditioning you and I'm allowing it to happen, and I'm conditioning me that we're going to tolerate this level of just sub-performance of what love really is. And love liberates, okay? Love does not ask anyone to sit down and sit with me, babysit me, hold my hand, and do everything with me, show me how to do this and stay with me, and hand over hand, every part of this you must. Love would be a parent saying, yes, okay, let me sit down, and show you hand over hand, let me show you this, let me live this, breathe this every day so that you're watching this and we're modeling this, and you're seeing it. Let me talk to you about your fear of what it is that you're trying to do. However, a parent that is overprotective and hovering, if they're still grown up and doing that in the context of a marital relationship, or if they're still doing that at their job, and shepherding people or being shepherded, we've simply carried on the extension of what really wasn't a very loving expression to begin with. Love allows for people to be their own expression. It allows them to be their own sovereign energy, to grow up and to express themselves however they choose to express themselves. And with that, love also understands that love's got nothing to do with me dropping your hand and saying, I'm out, you go do beautiful you, or whatever you think you're doing, please go do you with my blessing. And love also understands that just because someone rejects me doesn't mean that I need to take it personally. And if I do, the most loving thing I can do is look inside of me and figure out what is it that's broken in me that feels like that might be true, because it wouldn't ding with me, ping with me, or sting on me if it didn't feel like it was true somewhere inside of me. And so getting even with people or getting mad, saying I hate you, and those are all trauma parts that are trying to get resolution. And when we don't really ever bring that resolution, good Lord, we walk around with more dissonance, and then we look 18. We look for other bad players in the band to play, out of tune and badly, rackety with us, until one of us or all of us somewhere, somebody recognizes, ew, we're out of tune here. This band sounds like shit. It's hard on the old bones when I hear, I don't seem to like this. And until people get to that point, if they get to that point, it's not my job, nor is it my business to know why they don't have a better standard. Not mine to even evaluate it, simply to say that this is, kind of stuff that really does not allow for me to feel free in my own spirit when I feel like you're choking me, or when I feel like I have to sit down on you and ask you to do something to change about your life. It doesn't mean that we can't make commitments to people, and it doesn't mean that when people make promises and commitments to me that I don't expect them to follow through with that. It means that when they're human and it's a one-off, then I can deal with that. When it's a pattern, I notice that and I no longer engage with that. And now, after understanding that the very hard way, I fully understand that the best way sometimes to express love is to go away, and to go all the way away, not as a punishment. Well, see, don't you appreciate now that you don't have me? I bet you notice it now. That also is a trauma response that, notice me. And truly, the best answer to any of that is when I notice me, and notice that what part of me doesn't feel valuable or seen, that would care of someone that, left me behind, or that I had to leave behind. Why would I care? What part of me isn't feeling validated, isn't feeling seen? Because that situation already didn't do that. It already didn't show up the right way that felt good in order to stay in play. So for that side or for your side. And the most empowering steps that I can take are the ones where I take agency from there and say, wow, okay, there were things that I did in that relationship that really didn't serve. And be okay with that, and know that, yeah, there were things I did that really didn't serve. They weren't the greatest. And not power down in what a slime bag I am, and blah, 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 and believe the bullshit story that came from the other side. An honest evaluation of me takes very little context from anybody outside of me, because I can do a very good job of understanding if I go in here and get real honest about how I feel and what I know my behavior was in the past with whomever I may be thinking about. I can take that in here and say, oh yeah, I know where I was sliding around and being kind of greasy with that, and where I wasn't very honest with that. And then I can begin to take in some of those conversations where I go, well, that person mentioned such and such to me. How much validity does it have? However, if I'm running away from all of it, just thinking that I just don't love them anymore, I've just flopped out onto the beach, which 11:11 I can do. However, a fish lives best in the water, and love is the frequency that is the highest vibrational frequency of everything outside of density. So, and it's what runs and powers Earth. However, we just have a lot of density that gets in our way, and a lot of karma, a lot of misunderstanding about that. We think we're somewhere else besides the ocean. However, we are the ocean and everything in it. And we can, in fact, seemingly jump out of the ocean and get onto the shore and dry out. However, we don't ever truly separate from love. So even people that, have said, I hate you, I hope you die, things like that, is that they're still in the ocean swimming around somewhere. They're just stuck in a very dry place. They might be in a very shriveled up part, on the beach, almost on the edge of the universe somewhere, wondering, well, how did I get here? However, that's still going to propel them, as it does me, as it does you, as it propels all of us, that when we get to the point where this just really hurts, 12:12, and I don't understand that, we will begin that reflection, and we'll begin to understand that I was never out of love, because I'm always in love. It's a matter of I'm in a great extreme polarity, perhaps, far away from the expression of that. However, I didn't suddenly hop out of the ocean for real. It just feels like I did because I went to a pocket or a bubble or something somewhere where it didn't seem very oceanic to me. It didn't seem very watery to me. I tried to separate, and there's where, the creation of confusion and misunderstanding begins. And so if I could say anything to anybody today, it would be that you are never out of love for real. You're never out of the frequency of love. It is the baseline. The Schumann resonance of this planet is far higher than we are ourselves. The baseline of planet Earth itself is already a frequency that when we tune into that, we really feel that, and we get that coherence with our mind-heart coherence, and we plug into Earth. We feel that resonance, and we feel that, and we feel that automatic release of all that other stuff. And so we can know that if it's easy enough to get there at any point, it is easy enough to get there again. It's a matter of paying more attention to that, so that we can then come inside to the inventory within us to say, where am I trying to run from this? Where am I trying to hate someone? Where my intrinsic knowledge inside of me just understands that that's anti everything that's about me for real. And how do I fall out of the ocean? I really don't. However, it can certainly feel like I can, and I can definitely feel the hateful feelings. I'm not saying that we don't. I'm saying that the more honest we are about them, and the separation of people, and saying, look, I need to go do my life over here. This is very restricting, or I feel very restricting of you, and I can see why you'd want to run away from me there, darling. I got you. Then we grow up and we understand that the most butthurt place we can possibly stand is with ourselves, and saying that we've created everywhere we are. And I don't say that as as a punishment. I say that as we have created everywhere we are because we are standing there, and it is ours to not look too far in the past to say, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here, what an idiot, blah, 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 blah. Instead, to get right here to let me find how I plug into Earth, how I plug into me, a higher perspective immediately, and how I can feel more loving. What can I do to do that? And then move forward with that. And we don't need to spend as much time reviewing how much we love or hate someone, what they did wrong, etc. It's really about the inside job of what did I do that didn't best serve, and stay out of those conversations where I'm going to want to blame myself, shame myself, or look for somebody on the other side that it was all their fault. There's never anybody that's in an environment anywhere that they're there by victimization exclusively. We're there by choice, by virtue of the fact that we're on the planet. We agree to be here, and how much mastery we have of our environment and our situation and our mind is ours to take a hold of, and it really is irrelevant, difficult to separate from sometimes, but it's irrelevant about how we arrived right here to this very moment. It's that what do you want to do from this very moment? And the more that we can detach from all of that, the stories, the pain, the trauma, the bullshit, all of it, honor it. However, we really needn't spend a lot of time in review of it, and it will immediately begin to shift the perspective and change the frequency so that we're attracting that less, and then can dig our way out from the rubble pile and begin to really truly see that, the most loving frequency I have is to be very honest with me in those places where I've stepped away and where other people have stepped away, so that I can co-create with people who are more like me, people who are like-minded, will join me in places where there's respect, where there's dignity, where there is a true love that I can come and go with responsibility and accountability. I'm not saying, to be a dill hole. I'm saying that we can come and go and be free and in our creative brilliance, and then we choose to be in relationships with people, which is far more empowering. I'd rather somebody be spending time with me because they choose to, not because they think they should, not because they think they're going to get something good out of it, not because I think I'm going to get something good out of it, because we both choose out of our grown-up free will to say, out of all the ocean where I could be swimming right now, I really just want to be here with you, and that is totally good with me. I love that, and I love that we're experiencing this, and then when that time has closed, may it come again, great. However, I'm not so afraid that I'm trying to stack up my next 3 visits with you. I understand that the ocean is the ocean, and there's more experiences like that with you, whether it's with you or not. So I hope that's helpful to you in some way, and I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get in your skin, because you're divine. It is absolutely, absolutely gorgeous, and it's totally fine, and it can help redirect you, out of those drier spots every single time. But it does begin with asking the question on the inside, instead of continuing the rhetoric of, I don't love that person anymore, they don't love me. Those are just misinterpretations, of the ocean. However, it's all fine. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again next time, friends. Bye-bye.